Hi guys, look at what I got. This is a 1980s Marshall Lead 12 that I found at a stoop sale, and I picked it up right away because I have a valve state 8100 head and I have two 8080 combos. I just love the early Marshall solid state amps. I heard that this one was a beast. I am so impressed by the sound. They came with 10-inch Celestion speakers with a small magnet called G10D25. And some people replace it with the 10-inch greenbacks. Some people even put a 12-inch speaker in these. I just love the sound the way it is. And my plan is obviously to also install a speaker out so that I can hook it up to my JCM 900 cabinet. This amp is from the 80s. It has all the typical problems that these amplifiers develop over time. It cuts out. Number two, the pots are scratchy. When I plug in my guitar and the sound cuts out, I can wiggle the jack a little bit and it comes right back. So I am pretty sure that it's a cracked or a few cracked solder joints on that input jack on the inside. And that is a problem that happens all the time. It really is a mechanical problem because somebody kept yanking on that guitar cable too much, and then that cracks the solder joints over time. The other issue is the scratchy pots. That's a very typical issue. That's just some dirt that got into the pot. So we will just use some contact cleaner to clean that up inside the amp. Just to be clear, I want to give you a disclaimer here. I'm not a trained electrical engineer. I wasn't trained in electronics, but I'm pretty good at soldering. I practiced a lot and I learned a lot from YouTube videos and articles. But in any case, a lot of these problems are actually mechanical problems, like I said. So when you open up the amp, you can kind of see what the issue is, and sometimes a component will burn up. That is very apparent as well. A lot of these issues are instantly recognizable once you open up the amplifier. And then also if you have a little bit of a experience, you will know exactly what the problem is from the symptoms of the problem. Number two, please don't open up your amp if you're not comfortable working on electronics. This is not a project for somebody who's never soldered before. So just make sure that you have some experience doing that kind of stuff. It's extremely important to never open up an amplifier when it's plugged into the power. And then also, if you open them up and you see large capacitors that can store quite a bit of voltage, make sure to deplete those. And then with a multimeter, you can make sure that there's no electricity stored in them, so you cannot be shocked. I will break down this amp, open it up, clean it up a little bit. We will fix the input jack and clean out the potentiometers. I'm super excited to open this up. I haven't seen the inside yet. I just plugged it in, quickly checked that it works. It sounds fantastic the way it is, but obviously we need to fix those two issues. So let's get to work. Get this going with the wrench, but then I usually just use my hand. Don't want to scratch out that faceplate. hopefully with that we can just lift, yep, out, kind of flip over this beautiful little circuit board. IC1, that's the main IC. A lot of people actually put a socket in there and then they can try out different ICs. They all sound different. The JRC 4558, the one from the original Tube Screamers, is a popular option for that. And then that is the one of the power transistors. There's the other side of the pair. So those are responsible for all that nice juicy power. And then those are the filter caps. They're only 25 volts. So I'm not going to worry about those. But at some point I might replace those just for good measure, because they do expire over time. So yeah, that's the inside of the amplifier. Let me see if I can find the bad solder joints. Okay, so these are the joints that I suspect are bad. I can't really find anything obviously wrong with them by just looking at them, but I'm gonna go ahead and basically going to heat up all of these solder joints and reflow them, you know, all across here, basically going from the inputs all the way to the potentiometers. Probably doesn't hurt to do that to the line out as well. This is my soldering iron. I'm at 330 degrees, and sometimes I add a little bit of extra solder, but I think there's a lot on there, so I'm just gonna go ahead and reflow everything. Actually, I'm suspecting that this one is a replacement. Somebody replaced that in the past. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit to this one. I found a cracked one. I'm going to take a picture of it and post it in the video. It's a pretty obvious crack. I basically go through all of the solder joints. See if I can focus in on this. Using my phone as a magnifying glass. So I'm just going to go ahead and inspect all of them and fix any one that needs work. Okay, so I would like to mention one more thing here that caused me some problems with the one of the valve states actually. You will see it here actually. I had to clean up this spot a little bit. There's a lot of flux around these joints. And I read some articles about this. I don't exactly know the science, but it can actually become conductive over time. And that happened to my Marshall, where two joints were actually connecting that weren't supposed to be, and it was shorting out the power transistors on that amp. And once I cleaned it up and made sure that, you know, no conductive old flux was between the joints there, the amp has been working great. So just wanted to make sure to point that out. Okay, so now we're done with the soldering part, and very simply I can just kind of flip this around. See all these holes on the back side of the pots? That's where you can spray in some deoxit. And I just make sure to turn the pots from all the way down to all the way up about 10 times. It will get rid of the scratchiness. I also like to clean the jacks, so for that I'm just going to plug this in and spray a little bit of this in there. Move it in and out a few times, turn it a little bit. Okay, one last check. So one more note on the design on this amp. This PCB is only held in place by the nuts on the potentiometers and the jacks, the jack sockets. There's no support underneath. So I could see that, you know, over time, because the whole thing is basically hanging from this side, really on those solder joints. So I could see that the weight of it over time, you know, 30, 40 years, will actually necessarily result in a cracked, you know, or a few cracked solder joints. The amp is back together. My guitar is plugged in. I just kind of wanted to show you that there's perfect sound, no cutting out, no scratchy pots. It's all beautifully fixed.